Welcome to Ask Caleffi, the podcast that dives into real-life problems that plumbing and HVAC technicians face in the field. We're your hosts from the Caleffi Tech Support Team. I'm Greg Tubbs.
And I'm Dan Furcus. Welcome. We look forward to sharing some stories from our tech calls and using our background and expertise to make your days a little easier.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Ask Caleffi podcast. How we doing, Dan?
Doing great today, Greg. Exciting day for us.
Yeah, we have a pretty big name guest. At least we see him as a pretty big name guest.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest.
One of the biggest.
Yeah, exciting.
Biggest in stature for sure. We have Steve Smith with the PHCP Pros. How we doing, Steve?
Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited. I've been reporting on this industry since 1990. Actually been doing this since 1982, 40 years in September.
Wow.
And I've probably interviewed 100 million people in that time frame, and I've never been interviewed myself. So
Wow.
Interesting.
I'm excited to be on the other side of the microphone, I guess.
We're turning it
excited
at you.
to have you here.
But I just as a matter of introduction, again, I'm the editor of PHC News. We also publish. Our website is PHC Pros, which kind of mingles the three magazines that we produce into one website. And I think that's a very, very good website to go on, PHCP Pros.
It is.
It is.
Every time I go on there, there's a lot. There is a lot of information available. There's a lot of rabbit holes to jump down.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But as I mentioned, I've been reporting on this industry since 1990. It's a great industry. I tell you, I probably met the most authentic people in my life just reporting on toilets and water heaters. And I've been doing it mostly, I suppose, recently, certainly from the contract and installer side. But I also have covered the industry from the wholesaling distribution side and as well as the engineering side too. So I've kind of seen all aspects of it, and so it's just a tremendous industry. Just quickly, I got started out of college in 1982, and at some point, I was in a news writing 103 class, if I remember my numerals right, and there was a guy that came in to speak to us. Guest speaker, it wasn't a regular instructor, and he said, just imagine any occupation on the face of the earth, and I bet there's 4 or 5 magazines that you could write for. Now, this was in the 80s, so maybe there are not as many magazines as there used to be.
Sure.
But there's certainly 3 for any occupation on the face of the earth. When I heard that, I thought, wow, that's interesting, because I didn't want to be a newspaper guy.
Right.
I didn't want to write for a general circulation kind of magazine or newspaper.
Sure.
I wanted to know who I was writing for. So I made a beeline to Chicago after college. That's where I wanted to work primarily. And I worked for trade associations for 7 years. So that's kind of, a form of B2B, I guess. We didn't really necessarily have a magazine per se in those years, but I covered, financial things, which I thought was pretty exciting at the time. And there used to be a place close to my house called Horton Publishing, big as day. And anytime you wanted to go to movie shopping, 9 times out of 10, your path took you by this place.
Walking right past it.
And somewhere along the line, I slowed down slow enough to read the writing on the front door. They had 2 magazines. One was Supply House Times, and the other was Plumbing and Mechanical. And I didn't have a clue what a supply house was. And Plumbing and Mechanical was like, I don't know about that. So I never really thought much about it. And somewhere along the line, I answered a blind box ad when there still were help wanted ads in the Chicago Tribune, and a ton of them. And that's how I got into this industry.
Wow.
And it was a great introduction. I remember those years very well. It was, at the time, it was a small family business.
Sure.
And, we have gone on to, I still work for a relatively small family business too. But in the meantime, in between those 2 places, at least, I work for, pretty big, large corporate, I guess, publishers too. But it's a tremendous industry. I was just telling people the other day, again, I travel the world in the United States just because I know something about toilets, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to say.
Yeah. Well, and the people you meet along the journey as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. So you just came back from a big trip.
Yeah, we were in Italy in June, guests of Caleffi, of course. We took a factory tour on Monday, whatever Monday that would be. And then Tuesday, we were all on a bus to see Mostra.
Okay.
And then on Wednesday, we went back and talked to more people about manufacturing.
Sure. What did you think of Mostra?
Mostra was tremendous. I had not been to that show at all, ever. Now, I've been to ISH many times, so if anyone has been to that, they would relate to Mostra pretty well.
Okay.
In the sense that, in the United States, usually like you go to McCormick Place in Chicago, and it's not necessarily one hall. Usually in McCormick Place, there's that one big one and then the other one on the other side.
Yeah, there's wings.
No one ever thinks about the original one on the east side.
Sure.
But, it's essentially one big place that you're going. At Mostra and ISH, and maybe elsewhere in Europe, maybe that's the thing for trade shows. These are the only two I've really been to.
Sure.
But they're, interconnected buildings. So there's separate buildings. One might be boilers, one might be green, one might be HVAC, one might be plumbing, one might be tools. So they're all, connected on a concourse, a walkway, it's loaded with restaurants and bars and things. So, it's very, very interesting. Now, I recommend everyone go to ISH for sure. I guess that's next year. I haven't been to that myself for many, many years. I'm hoping that maybe I can get to go one more time. Mostra was very interesting. I mean, again, I don't know what the attendance figure was. Maybe you guys, I did see a press release, but we're talking, 5 figures. It's a huge, huge show.
Yeah.
And Caleffi had a huge, huge booth and very nice hospitality part of the booth as well. But that said, obviously I know Caleffi very well. And there were some familiar names to American audiences as I walked around, but then a lot that, aren't for whatever reason in America. And, I'm sure they're happy not to be.
Right.
That's their own decision. But
Right.
I was really surprised at how many new names there are that I've never have heard of. And the choice is amazing. How many faucets and there's so much
faucets
stuff.
and valves.
I mean,
and things.
again,
that,
there were. I offhand, I'm going to say 10 buildings. There could have been more, but they were all full of people. And I'm sure they hadn't had Mostra for a couple of years with on account of COVID.
Yeah,
It's probably, I think it's an every other year show anyway. Every other year,
Right.
opposite-ish. So it was always good to go to a trade show.
Yeah, sounds like a great opportunity
Yeah.
to see a lot of products and manufacturers you maybe don't see every day here in North America.
Absolutely, yeah. You always learn something. There's always something new.
Yeah.
And here we are in Milwaukee. Milwaukee Tool had a huge booth. I was glad to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, there's always the familiar names, but there's a ton out there that you've never heard of.
Oh, I bet.
yeah.
That shows you how big the plumbing and heating industry is.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So from there, you ended up going to do a factory tour.
Well, we started Monday with a full day of a factory touring, I guess, and then went to Mostra on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we went back. So we saw a ton of stuff, obviously, and I guess the things that would stick out to me most is, let's back up a bit. I mean, it's always shocking to me just to see things made.
Right.
I'm not in the factory every day. I'm sitting at a desk, not really. I guess I'm making something.
Yeah, we all have our lot.
factory.
We all have our
creating.
lot in life. Some people do great with writing and the written word, and some of us do better with our hands.
Yeah.
Building something.
But just how does it all go together? I have no clue. I have no background to understand how you get the raw source material and how it gets shipped out the door and everything in between. When you see it, it's like, the coordination and the working together and just the metrics. It's just amazing to see.
Yeah, that's what stands out to me. You have to take this from a concept to creation and get it sold and in the field.
Right.
And there's a lot of
things that go into it. A lot of steps.
A lot of steps.
Sourcing the raw material.
Yeah.
To getting it there, and to shaping it into the product, and then marketing the product and getting it in contractors' hands.
And there's still certainly a lot of automation in any factory, but there's still a lot of stuff that requires two human hands putting it together, and there's no other way to really do it.
Right.
With a robot. Robots can do plenty of stuff, and let's let them do what they can do.
right.
but there's still the attention to detail and the dexterity, I guess. A robot doesn't have it.
Right.
Sure.
And it just, just seeing all that stuff made in front of your eyes. And the factory was, the manufacturing is one thing. We definitely saw certainly plenty of evidence of manufacturing excellence when we were there. But the one thing I wanted to see the most was actually the last thing we saw would be the vertical warehouse.
Yeah.
I believe this is like 10 stories tall.
Yeah.
And the lights were on just for our benefit. But if you can picture something out of, like the last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're putting the Ark in that big warehouse and it goes all the way back. It's kind of like that, only with robots.
Right.
Everything is picked and stored on shelves. Like I say, go 10 stories up. All these robots going back and forth, up, down, all day long, I guess. Yeah. And they do it in the dark. Rob, they don't need the lights.
Right.
So it's kind of funny when they said that to us because it was obviously very brightly lit when we were there. Yeah. But the fact that, this it's all done in pitch dark was really something to see. I really wanted to see that the most. I had seen something like that once before when I went to Isch at a boiler manufacturer in Germany. And it was I think this was even bigger than that. And just, it's hard to describe. I mean, I'll try my best, but it's like a little train system that brought, things, pallets, nothing more than that. And the brains behind this operation knows exactly where these things are.
Right.
Because there didn't seem to be any logical rhyme or reason to where these things were picked and stored, and then they knew how to get it. It's just a wooden pallet that's hoisted up 10 stories and stuffed where there's an empty space, I guess, essentially.
Just put it up.
And then of course it has to come down, and the shipping and receiving was right there too, and of course the trucks, and off they go to the warehouse and into America, I guess.
Yeah, so you put in a part number, and the machine goes out in this big warehouse and finds the product and brings it back.
Yeah, and they made a point too of where they are, where Caleffi is in Italy for their headquarters at least. They're very landlocked and they don't have any space to expand. I mean, I think you guys here have some empty space behind your warehouse that maybe you're going to add on to someday.
Yep, we have
maybe someday soon.
Yeah,
but there they don't. So the only option for warehousing at least was to go up, 10 stories up.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Real estate goes for a premium there, and if you only have so much room to expand upward is the next place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but, you mentioned the lights in the warehouse. Yes. You're right. The lights are there for the tours. Right. They're not there for for warehouse workers.
But I did like, some of the culture that I did see that they made a point of saying, like, at lunchtime, everybody eats lunch, at a restaurant maybe, or not at their workspace. Sure. Americans, we're used to eating at our desk, and
I'm guilty of it.
I do it all the time.
All the time.
But no, you can't do that. And then there was, coffee culture is huge in Italy. No surprise there. But what was surprising was, and I have a picture somewhere, a vending machine with literally 20, 25 options of coffee.
Really?
That you could have.
Really?
That's crazy.
A day. And the coffee break was pretty important as well.
Yeah, that's spot on.
It's second time. I think there was probably two, and they were second and third only to the lunch break.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, we're used to eating on the go.
Yes.
And it keeps moving. The day keeps moving.
So maybe that's probably a good thing we should try to adopt.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Eat somewhere else, not at your desk, and have that cup of coffee. Come on.
Yeah.
I can beat that.
Take a break. Slow down a little bit.
Take a break.
Yeah.
Take a break, yeah.
So through your illustrious career, I'm sure you've had opportunity to tour other manufacturing facilities. I mean, I guess how did the Caleffi experience stack up to others?
Well, I think everybody's moving toward automation. That's there's no two ways about that. It's going to happen. And we saw that. I've seen that elsewhere, of course, many places, but in Caleffi in Italy, there were robotic material handling systems, forklifts, I guess, all robotic, all controlled. I thought maybe there was a strip in the floor somehow, but they were radio frequencies,
Sure.
above somehow, like an antenna.
Okay.
And they knew where to go. Now, there were still, human beings driving forklifts too. And there was also kind of an interesting thing that I don't think I'd quite seen, where they called them cobots, meaning in a workstation, maybe there were two human beings side by side, but in the middle, there was a robot. When I say robot, I'm talking one of those robotic arms.
Sure.
That was doing its thing. All protected, of course, because, or you got to stay away from the robots. But the point was made that there were, again, some things that you got to do by hand and other things that maybe you can mechanize and automate. Yeah. So obviously any manufacturer I've ever gone to is slowly but surely kind of moving toward more automation. But it was good to see. I don't think I'd understood the concept of cobots before I saw that.
Yeah, we have certain products, of course, that will take humans to help with assembly, but I know we have a number of products over there that are built 100% with automation.
Yeah,
I mean, from the time the raw materials loaded into being measured, tested, quality checked, and boxed and out the door, 100% by automation.
Yeah, we definitely saw that. I know later, after we get done here, I want to talk to others at Caleffi here in Milwaukee to talk particularly about the 521 valve, which we did see as well. And I know that's a pretty big product for you guys in America, at least, everywhere.
Certainly is.
But there was one, and I was racking my brain to try to figure out the name of it. I'm going to have to call Max Rohr later, because I know we saw that. But that was exactly it.
I believe that's our Robocale.
Robocale.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Robocale,
Exactly.
Yep.
Kind of like at the top and the bottom.
Correct.
And then the gaskets and seals in between. And so that was all done in one workstation and then boxed as well.
Yeah.
That's
at the same place. So you didn't have to walk. That's the other thing that they made point very clear to me. Again, with COVID, I haven't been out and about to many factories in the last few years.
Sure.
So you kind of forget some things you learned over the years. But one of those things was that, if you could limit the walking, you're going to save time, of course, and energy and confusion. It's so much. That's the thing about manufacturing when it just bowls me over, about the coordination of thinking about all those little steps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Coordination to maximize efficiency.
Yeah.
Well, and that machine, as it's manufacturing it, it's measuring every aspect of it and quality checking it as well. And if it doesn't come out to meet specs, it'll reject it.
Yeah.
So it has the ability to do that all in that automated process.
Yeah, we saw some interesting quality control aspects too that were kind of almost literally brand new, because we were there on a Monday, and Friday I think they had put this thing together, and it was kind of a video camera, I guess, and you could compare the silhouette almost. I'm oversimplifying,
right?
But the silhouette of the product and the measurements and all the micrometers and everything else.
Yeah, it's scanning that product.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So another example of automating for the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with your tour, and seeing all the aspects of the Caleffi factory, if you were put yourself in the place of an installer in the field, what aspect might have impressed you the most that would make you want to use our products?
Well, I think any installer would benefit greatly to take a factory tour. If they can go to Caleffi, go to Caleffi. If they have another favorite manufacturer, go to that factory.
Yeah.
Again, once you see it with your own eyes, see things how they're made and made well. Mm-hmm. I guess that's part of the. Should I use this? Should I use that? If you can see something made and clearly it's done correctly and efficiently, and I mean, look at all the people and all the steps that go into it. I think it would make up your mind if you're on the fence between this valve and that valve to see that particular valve made. And, besides that, of course, it's good to go out and see things with your own eyes, but there's the camaraderie that comes along with that factory tour. We had a couple of group dinners as part of the experience that we had in Italy. So anytime you can, get out and about to a manufacturer, and I'm sure they're glad to see you. Oh, yeah. As an installer, they want you there. But this is a people business, and but at the same time, people are also getting so busy that sometimes they don't have time to do business with people. So they need to see something and then feel confident that they can go forward with knowing that they've made the right choice. I guess that's how I think about it lately.
No, I think you're right. If you can get out and see the factory and see that the quality and effort put into manufacturing the product, and then surround it by good people and good company culture, I think that really will bond. Respond.
Yeah, and again, at Italy, we saw manufacturing, we saw the warehousing with the vertical warehouse, and then I've been here in Milwaukee many times, and that's the one reason I came back, because I saw manufacturing excellence clearly on display. But at the same time, I know contractors buy more than one thing at a time. But what I like to do is find out, okay, and I've talked about this before with Mark Olson and other people here. I'm a contractor in America. I need one valve. I go to the local warehouse, local supply house. How do I ensure that it's there? And how do I know that it's there? And that's why I want to find out more, just to kind of put the two together. Got manufacturing and warehousing, I guess, in one, many, many miles away. And then here you've got a warehouse. I know there's problems with logistics and supply chain issues, and that's not going away anytime soon either.
No, and I think we've done really well, wouldn't you say, Greg?
Yeah, we're really working hard at trying to keep shelves stocked and product available to kick out the door when someone does run low on something.
Right. Yeah, because we were here last year, talked to Mark Olson exactly about that thing. I think as he put it, if there's more stuff in the barn, in the warehouse, that normally you wouldn't want financially to have there, but just sitting on the shelf, it's best to do it.
With the temperature of the climate we're in, we needed it badly.
Right.
Yeah. You said something just a few lines ago that this is a people business. People need to be in contact. What is the best way you've seen manufacturers and kind of contractors communicate?
Well, tours, as we've been talking about. And let's not forget the role the manufacturer rep plays. I mean, they're key, I think.
I agree.
I think maybe they're the most important part of it all, because those are the guys that are training, holding counter days probably, having educational sessions, either kind of a miniature one right on the fly at the counter days, have a hot dog and learn to use this, or literally having a classroom. Or more importantly, too, digitally, obviously, is we live in a digital world, don't we?
We do.
Here we are talking on a podcast that didn't exist for a couple of years because you guys didn't have one.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's another way of sharing the information. So any way you can get the word out, all the best. It's best, I suppose, to make it face to face when you can, but information is key. And how do you do it? Not, I'm kind of biased in my sense, what I do for a living. What am I? I'm a print journalist, but of course we have a website, we have e-newsletters, and you have to, the magazine is monthly. Maybe 20 years ago that was good enough,
right?
But your website is daily, newsletters are weekly, and the magazine is once a month. So you kind of cover all the bases that way. So getting back to manufacturers, manufacturers are doing exactly what I guess editors are doing now. It could be a print product. I know you got the Hydronics that is very popular in print.
Yeah.
We do our Coffee with Caleffi webinars monthly.
Right.
Yeah. And then we have just our general tech support.
So tech support, the blog. There's, like you said,
a ton of stuff.
If you don't keep up with all that stuff, you turn into a ghost.
Yes,
exactly. You're not nearly as viable.
Right. Yeah. I don't. Maybe it was the case years ago, decades ago, that a manufacturer could make something, and here we are, folks. And maybe they found the way to the door, and somehow, some way, and kept at it. I don't think a startup company could do that now. They'd have to educate. They'd have to train. They'd have to promote, whether that be print or digitally or podcast, whatever.
Right.
It's all information, right? I'm an installer and I'm wondering what to do. I need to know what that is. And I need to, I guess, learn that in my own way. Maybe I do learn by reading.
Right.
Maybe reading. Probably I learn more from doing as an installer.
Or if you're like some of us with a phone in hand, QR code reader. Hey, this product's got a QR code on the box.
Right there.
Let's see where it takes us.
Exactly.
Exactly. He'll take you to a video that'll show you how to disassemble and clean a backflow or whatever that product might be.
And what couldn't be more opportune at that point in time too?
Yeah.
You take a scan of the QR code on the box and get taken to a website to learn, see a video of how to install or how to troubleshoot.
Yes.
That's just shocking how immediate that is nowadays. So anything you can do to do that and kind of set the contractor's mind at ease is the best thing to do.
No, I think you're right. It's making it easy for the contractor to find that information.
Right.
I think that's key.
Yeah, because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
You get lost.
Yeah, there is.
And you have to do it in multiple formats to key on, like I said, some people like to read, some people like to do. Some people are in their trucks all day, and they can listen to a podcast on, on their iPhone.
Yeah, and every format is sometimes is geared to a different audience too.
Right.
I mean, a contractor may not have an hour to sit down and watch a Coffee with Caleffi webinar.
That's right.
But they can jump in and listen to a podcast. They might not have time to read the Hydronics. Maybe they want to scan that QR code and get to a video and get it a little quicker.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting pretty technical with everything we're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's lighten the mood a little bit. We all like food, right?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. I'm guilty of that. My hobby used to be cooking, but it's really eating. I mean, let's be honest with it.
End result.
It's the means to the end, right?
Yes, absolutely. So you got to experience some Italian cuisine. What did you think? What was one of your favorite dishes?
Oh, very good. Yeah. Well, again, I am a foodie. I used to read cookbooks like they were actually books, with a plot and a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'd have to live 10,000 years to make all the recipes of all the books I have at home. But I really enjoyed the first night we were in town. We got to, when everything was said and done, we got into town in Arona on Saturday afternoon, and we met Max and Sharon, and we met a couple, Graziano and Sabrina. I know Graziano works at Caleffi because I saw him at the factory. I think Sabrina might work at Caleffi too. I'm not so sure. But they took us to a restaurant in Arona. I'll say I don't remember the name, but boy, that was fun. That was a great meal. And, it's kind of confusing in Italy because they have like first course, second course, main course. And,
we roll totally different here.
Yeah, so first course is like an appetizer. Yeah. And then I'm still not quite sure what the second course is. It's usually a smaller course. The entree is a little bit bigger. But the food was tremendous. And I had a veal chop that was breaded, and that was what Graziano said was the region's most well-known dish.
Okay.
So when I took a picture of it and put it on Facebook, as I always do with everything I eat, and people laughed at me because he went all that way and he had a breaded veal cutlet. I'm like, wait a minute, this was the best breaded veal cutlet you've ever had, and it was bone in too, so it had a little more flavor.
Yes.
But that was memorable. If I had spent another day in Arona, I would have gone back to that restaurant for sure because we didn't. It was the only one time we went.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, Graziano and Sabrina picked us up in their car, and they drove us to another local place that they really liked, and we sat outside, and that was another memorable dinner. Everybody in America, well, I guess Europeans think Americans eat way too much, and their plate's full of food. I tell you, the restaurant we went to Sunday night is American style because I ordered a steak, and the steak, I don't know how much it weighed. It was the size of the plate. I literally took it home to the hotel, and we had a refrigerator in the room, thank God. And I ate a little bit of that steak every morning for the next 3 days.
You know what it was is the wait staff probably eyed you up and said, well, he's 6.5 feet tall, so we need to have a steak that's this big.
The American, the big.
We're going to give him half a steer instead of like an eighth of the steer.
Well, we had Monday, we had a group dinner at our hotel, which was a good meal. The hotel was very nice that we stayed at, kind of the edge of town. Arona is, kind of I tell everybody, if you want a laid-back Italian lakeside town to go to for vacation, go there, because the hotel was a little bit on the edge of town, so a little bit more quieter, I guess. But then Tuesday, we had a group dinner again in Arona. That was very good. And then the Wednesday, we also had another group dinner.
Okay.
And we had a nice lunch too, between the factory tours and everything else. But yeah, if you go to Italy as a guest of Caleffi, they're going to feed you well, I'm sure. I can't imagine there's bad food. Maybe there is, but everything was so good. Yeah, and the wine, and the other thing too is fun too. Is like in America we don't have town squares necessarily where you can in the morning and go have coffee, and then literally the same place at the end of the day you can go have a glass of wine and sit outside and do it. So it's just nice.
Sounds like a great experience.
It's a different culture there, and it sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, great. I think we covered everything we needed to cover and then some.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad I got to be here and tell you about my Italian adventure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. If you ever need help,
please feel free to contact our tech support team anytime at techsupport.us@caleffi.com.
or call us during our business hours at 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Central Time at 414-238-2360.